Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. And we've got an absolutely massive one to discuss today. As you may have heard by this point, the utterly enormous acquisition of Activision Blizzard from Microsoft, which has kind of blown the gaming writers out there away today. I actually just couldn't believe what I'd heard. And of course, I've got Sam here joining me today to discuss the matter. And just as a quick rundown, just in case you've somehow not heard about this today, this is from a tweet from Jason Schreier earlier today, but the Wall Street Journal reports that Microsoft is buying Activision Blizzard, the troubled publisher behind Call of Duty and World of Warcraft, which has been facing crisis over the last year following numerous reports of sexual misconduct and discrimination, a seismic gaming deal. And that number came down to 70 billion US dollars, which is insane, especially when you consider that Bethesda was bought whenever that was for 7 billion. So it's huge,
quite a bit more.
Huge jump. And there's a lot of potential implications for this deal, a lot of topics that kind of come swirling around for people as to what the results of this could be. And obviously the big thing, as mentioned in that tweet from Schreier there, the controversy and the problems that have arisen from the inside of Activision. And this is something as well that we here at JumpCut haven't been, you may have noticed before in our older content, we had covered games like Call of Duty and such. And after the news of sexual misconduct, of all of these cases of sexual harassment were coming to light, we decided to take a step back from covering those kind of games because we didn't entirely feel comfortable with covering them when, there was obviously blatant injustice going on in the company. And this though has come to light. The reason that we're actually bringing this up today is because it has some serious, there's real potential here for Xbox to completely shake up and eradicate in many ways the issues that they have faced. Firstly, before we kind of get into it, I'm just going to ask, like, what were your kind of impressions of this when the story broke today?
I didn't think it were real. It just obviously Schreier's a very reputable reporter, so I wasn't doubting what he was saying, but it just surreal to read that Microsoft have just bought fucking Activision of all companies. It's really
company that just didn't really seem like it would even be on on the cards at all. Like and the way that I see it in terms of like how the opportunity for Microsoft has arisen is the fact that I really think in terms of monetary, like financial value of that company, their stocks will have really plummeted in the last year. Obviously, we've seen that it's not had the massive implication for the actual sales of their games, but the stock value of the company, the reputation is down. And I think that is possibly why it is given Microsoft the opportunity to go, we can actually buy this, because obviously 70 billion is just an enormous number. I think if you'd done that 2 years ago, 3 years ago, it would have been a lot higher. But now, obviously, one of the things that's going about an awful lot is whether Bobby Kotick is going to remain as CEO. He's someone that has kind of just been like, nah, I'm staying. Like, I'm not the problem. I'm going to solve the problem kind of guy, which obviously hasn't sat right with a lot of people within the company and out with. So to kind of clear the, because I think it's not been outright stated in many ways of like whether Kotick will remain, but at this point, and from sources that we've seen, is that he will remain there until the deal is closed, which looks like it'll be in the summer of 2023, after which
next June
he will leave the company. That's kind of what it seems to be at this point. I'd meant to get this up actually, but there were some tweets coming out from sites like Charlie Intel on more sources saying that was the case, that he would be leaving. Do you think he would stick around after that?
I mean, in my opinion, you can't really do this kind of acquisition without him going. at the end of it, at least in my opinion. You can't have somebody that's very much at the center of these really like egregious things that have happened at Activision over the last year and then keep him on. It don't really, I don't know, leaves a sour taste in my mouth. I feel like he has to go at the end of this acquisition, which, like you say, the deal should close next June. And then apparently in the meantime, Activision's going to report independently to Phil Spencer. And then after I believe he's going to be the CEO of effectively of Activision in a sense. I don't know the full details, but that's the gist of it.
Yeah. And I think for a lot of people that were kind of going on Twitter and saying that he would remain, I think it was partly unclear for a little bit, but in a kind of clearer sense of why you wouldn't be leaving before then is they can't sack somebody from a company that they don't actually own yet.
Yeah.
Because there's many obstacles that they have to face, and assuming I'm not going to pretend that I'm any kind of person that knows how a deal of this size goes down. Just some guy with like the biggest briefcase of money you've ever seen. But there is still the potential that it could fall through, I suppose. You never really know, but obviously this has some major implications. And considering that Phil Spencer himself had said that, I think, was it just like in the last couple of weeks or last week or so,
last couple of weeks,
saying that they were going to have to reevaluate their relationship with the company.
It's kind of a bigger reevaluation, is it not?
People kind of thinking, yeah, that'll be them like stepping back, maybe not publishing their stuff. No, she's gonna buy the company.
I wonder, like, because obviously that's come out a few weeks ago, but I have to wonder whether this has been in the works for a lot longer than the public has known, because these kind of things obviously take a lot of time to finalize.
Well, actually, just from a tweet that came out 35 minutes, actually before we recorded for once rather than after of the press. But apparently, Microsoft's leadership, this is from Charlie Until, Microsoft leadership and Activision Blizzard leadership worked through the December holiday to lock this deal per resort, which they've said crazy how this all came together in 2 months. And yeah, do you think had the allegations and the news coming out of the company hadn't surfaced last year, we would be talking about this at all?
I mean, it's hard to say without having a time machine or whatever, but I do feel like those things coming out have a big part of it. I think that is part of maybe Phil Spencer's kind of motive for acquiring Activision, to kind of repair its reputation in a sense. Because I mean, it's an odd one, because outside of people, like, I don't want to sound like condescending, but like outside people, me and you, that obviously write about games for a living, the general audience who kind of plays Call of Duty and whatnot aren't, I don't want to say they're not bothered, but they're not, I don't know, maybe as plugged in to what's going on kind of behind the scenes of the game in a sense. So it's not really affected it sales wise, but it's an odd one. I feel like Phil Spencer's motive has to be, in a sense, to repair it, and I hope it is.
Yeah, I think in many ways as well, because not a lot of people had confidence within in Activision to actually do anything meaningful in terms of the change that they said they were going to make. There was a bit of news with over like 40 people that had been sacked in the last couple of weeks or something along those lines, but people were obviously just not happy the fact that Kotick himself hadn't left. Now, I think that kind of the responsibility of that, a lot of people are thinking shifts now to Xbox. And reputation wise, I think they know that. They'll know that, like, that's what has to happen for them to, because Phil Spencer and like, in the industry of people that a bunch of people that everyone kind of dislikes, there's a lot of names and figures that people just don't like in the industry. Phil Spencer, being such a big name, has kind of remained one of those people that everyone does have a pretty good impression of. I think people tend to like him. What he says carries a little bit of weight in a way. So I think he'll be very aware of that going into this. And I hope that kind of, suggests that they will be making changes like that. But on to the actual, in terms of the franchises and the things that you've got coming through from this deal, I've got a list here from the old work, GG Recon. They have, I'm going to read out a list of all the franchises here. They've got Blur, Caesar, Call of Duty, Candy Crush, Crash Bandicoot, Diablo, DJ Hero, yes, DJ Empire Earth, Gabriel Knight, Geometry Wars, Guitar Hero, Gun, Hearthstone, Heroes of the Storm, Hexen, Interstate 76, King's Quest, Laura, Bow Mysteries, The Lost Viking, Overwatch, Phantasmagoria, Pitfall, Police Quest, Prototype, Quest for Glory, Singularity, Skylander, Soldier of Fortune, Space Quest, Spyro of the Dragon, StarCraft, Tenchu, Time Shift, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, True Crime, World of Warcraft, and Zork is all of the things that they're buying. Buy it through this acquisition. Can't even speak now. Too many words. That is like a lot of names,
IP. Yeah.
a lot of IP, a lot of potential in there. And this had some people worried in a sense because we've had a lot of Xbox game studios that have joined the team. And then we've had Bethesda last year. Now with this, people are kind of worried about monopoly in a sense. Is that something you're worried about?
In a sense, because like the specific examples where as somebody that like primarily plays on PlayStation, like obviously we've both got Xboxes, but I primarily play on the PlayStation, whatever. In a sense, yeah, I'm a little bit worried. Like the Indiana Jones game, I feel like that has the potential to maybe be an Xbox exclusive, which might be a bit of a kick in the teeth to like people want to play that on the PS5 and whatnot. Mm-hmm. So I think it exists to an extent, but we spoke about it in the Project Spartacus with like game preservation and kind of like cross console collaboration. Like, I think Phil Spencer's one of those people in the industry who's very much aware of stuff like that, and I think, and he's even said in this statement today, I think like it's going to be them acquiring acquisition is like a celebration of sorts of spreading these different IPs across generations in a way. So I'm hoping, like with all this IP they've acquired, it's not going to be like a Disney owning everything in the movie industry kind of thing. I'm still hoping there's going to be like a collaboration, a back and forth.
Yeah, the way I kind of see it is like a not necessarily something where this strict one company will be controlling everything. It's more that these developers are kind of living in the same house in a way. I don't like. It's not like Xbox or Microsoft. They're particularly interested in making everything like a AAA top seller kind of thing. Obviously, that's within their interest, but they've shown put a lot of effort into putting the spotlight on indie games and so on and so forth. And I just don't get the impression that it would be so monopolized in that sense, where it's just like, we've got hold of your IP now, we're gonna we're gonna wring this dry. I don't really think. I think Xbox has gotten this far. It's kind of clawed its way back after losing out really in the last generation, where people were just like, what is this? They're focusing on media instead of games and this, and they put a real focus back in the games, and they are steadily clawing it back to the sense that people are looking at Sony and be like, right, well, what are you doing? And obviously, like we're saying, we spoke about Project Spartacus. It seems like now they're deciding to come into this whole subscription streaming kind of angle. To me, it actually feels a little too late. I know I'll be hyped up when it comes around, but it does feel like, Microsoft had the foresight to see this coming, the kind of business model they were going to take, and just go for it before anyone else was really like considering it. And now I think it's paying off, and it's because of like the kind of hard work in that sense, where they have put the focus in the games. So I'm not necessarily worried like that. In terms of it being exclusive, I'm not sure. Like, I think it's a kind of touchy subject in the sense that, unlike Sony, because Sony are known for their exclusives, that's kind of the thing. Like, people were like, you buy a Sony console for the exclusive games, but the difference being here is that Xbox are like taking games that were on everything and making them exclusive. That's, I think, has a different light on it for some people, rather than a company that's just never let anyone else play it in a way. Like, people are going on about, oh, it's crazy because now they're letting PlayStation games go on PC.
Yeah.
So,
well, what you're saying there, like, is another aspect that they've mentioned today. Is well, it's not really surprising, but they're expanding to mobile as well. Like, they're bringing a lot of IP there, so I'm curious to see what exactly that entails. Does it mean that it's going to have like a bigger kind of collaboration with xCloud, like bringing stuff to that, or is it actually like core developed games for mobile? Because it's such an interesting market in itself. So I'd be curious to see how they go about that. And like we've got in his notes as well, like it says here the Activision Blizzard games will come to Game Pass after the deal closes next year. And currently Game Pass has 25 million subscribers. So that it just opens up a whole different like conversation itself.
It is weird though, in the sense, like when you compare it to the kind of the other media form of this model being Netflix, and how supposedly Netflix have never actually made money from it, yet they're year in and year out, they're constantly buying more movies. You know, they had the ambitious thing this year where they were saying, or was it last year actually, where they said we'll have a movie every single week for the entire year. And you know, they're bringing in people like Dwayne Johnson and Ryan Reynolds and all this kind of stuff.
Dwayne Johnson, big Xbox fan.
So I'm just to spend all of this kind of money, it's kind of hard to imagine in a way like how they are making money. In a sense, it's something that is effectively really, really cheap, because you consider like if you're paying the £11 a month for Game Pass, you take that up to the here's me trying to do quick math, £132 for the year. But you're saying £132 for the year, but that minus maybe 50 for what would have been Xbox Live, which is also included in that. So it's not actually a lot of money. It's great value for money, as we know so far. I think it would be interesting to see if they're going to implement a tiered system like we discussed with Sony. And I think that could be the case as well, considering like the kind of big hitters that you're bringing into this. Because I think what a lot of people forget in many senses is that like what the average gamer, what the guy that just is like, yeah, I've got a PlayStation, yeah, I've got an Xbox, but he's like, he doesn't know what's happening in the world of games. He doesn't know any of the indie games that are coming out, the RPG stuff. He's just like a FIFA and a Call of Duty guy. And like something like Game Pass, I don't know if that would be entirely enticing to them, but then do you think they would make big games like this exclusive?
So I mean, if Activision's coming to Game Pass, and you've just mentioned FIFA there, which is already on there to an extent, just if they bring back, say, classic kind of COD titles like Modern Warfare 2, they reinstate the servers for them online, or you bring even just 2019's Modern Warfare on it, they'll make an absolute killing on Game Pass. Like if you've got those two titles there, because they are the big kind of like easy to hop into titles that everybody plays.
Do you think then with whatever, say the 2023 Call of Duty title that comes out, will it be exclusive on Xbox though?
I don't think it will. I was reading up earlier, like Call of Duty, Vanguard, like regardless of the quality of the game, and Black Ops Cold War, like they're still in the top 10 most played games on PlayStation, like at the minute, and they were in there December and the past couple months before that. So they've clearly got staying power, like the franchise always has anyway. But like they're clearly staying in there, and I can't see them taking away such a huge portion of that market. I think it would dethrone it as like being like the fastest selling US FPS franchise or whatever. I don't think they do that.
I think as well, like I'd spoken, kind of mentioned, was like the reputation of Xbox going into like taking games for everyone away to make them exclusive. Call of Duty would be a massive, massive game for them to take away from other players. Like I'm saying, the people that like you have, like the number of gamers are growing every year, but so many of those are those casual players I'm talking about that only buy the two games a year. Call of Duty being one of the most, it's people like that are keeping Call of Duty in the top, the top of the charts. And I just think for them to not only take it away from a service, but effectively, like when you look at what Sony has left to buy, or Sony has left to like, if this is the way we're going, where, big companies are buying up all of these developers, like, what does Sony have left to counter this? When it's like Activision is literally like one of the biggest titles. What you talking? They're going to buy Nintendo or something like that. It's just, and I think like for them to go, it would be in a way like them going, right, we've won now. We've like beat you. We've got the biggest titles that you can't sell anymore, and effectively like, taking away a lot of the power of the PlayStation, which I think just wouldn't look good in them in that way. It'd be like they've proven themselves to be the the more successful company, but in a way that just everyone goes, this is the company that kind of saw the downfall of PlayStation, let's say. Just be a little bit dramatic about it. But I don't, in that sense, so I don't think they can. I think a series like that is too big to just say, no, now you need to buy a new console to play it, even though you've been playing it this way for so many years. And I know people will counter that, be like, well, they're doing that with like Elder Scrolls 6 or but those games aren't as big.
I mean, you can say it about PlayStation as well, and to an extent, because you can be like, oh, I need to buy a PS5 because I can't play Spider-Man 2 or whatever. But like, there's still that kind of versus argument there.
The poor soul that bought a PlayStation to play Spider-Man and Avengers.
But like, even as big as Spider-Man is, like, gaming sense, I don't think Spider-Man's as big like as it is a movie wise. No, I don't know if that's a controversial
thing. I know, it isn't. Yeah, it's the same way. It's like, I think sometimes people maybe confuse them in a way with like pop culture. Yeah. Can't think of the word I'm trying to say here, but like, they're not as relevant. Like pop culture relevance isn't the same as like the numbers that are coming through for games like that. And like Spider-Man will be a big game, people love it, but it's not a Call of Duty. It's not something that like means that the development company behind it can be sold for $70 billion, Yeah. So it's a really like it's an enormous story here. It's something I think people are going to be talking about it for a while. It's going to be a little bit before we see like the actual impacts of this in a way. Personally, from like a consumer standpoint, I think it's good in terms of, I like the idea of just being given a package. It's part of the reason why I've always stuck with consoles rather than going to PC. I like the simplicity of just plugging something in and playing it. And I also starting to like the idea of getting that console, plugging it in, and having an absolute enormous wealth of content to go through. And this is really just adding to it. In terms of them kind of controlling that and taking away from other places, I don't know. I feel like it's going to be the way it goes eventually. It's something that's been started and it can't really be stopped in terms of buying up these companies and saying that you're making stuff for me now because we need to beat these guys. But like, what's your kind of general impressions? Do you think this will have like is this the start of like something big, or is it, are people blown out of the water? Or sorry,
I think it's the start of something pretty meaningful for the industry, and hopefully in a positive way. Like, I think first and foremost, there needs to be this direct conversation between Microsoft and Activision and to us as consumers, that there's going to be meaningful change in regards to everything that's happened over the last year. So that's one thing they need to address. In regards to actual like games and stuff, like if they've got all this IP, like you've mentioned stuff there, like True Crime, like I used to play those games all the time on PlayStation 2, and Tony Hawk, like I love those games, and the remaster was awesome. Like there's so much potential for them to bring these games, put all the ones on Game Pass, and hopefully see new installments of franchises that have been dormant for ages. I hope we can see some of that come to fruition. But I think first and foremost, my thing is they need to sort the company out from a core level. Yeah, and that's going to be the big kicker.
I think that's the thing that a lot of people are really excited about, in a sense, for a company to come in and like in a way, this kind of, to me in my eyes, kind of takes away the power from the people that kind of higher ups in Activision who have been, maybe hiding behind or not taking responsibility, saying, no, we're shifting the blame over here, saying, oh, we're doing this, but they're not really doing, like, making the meaningful change. This, in a way, obviously, we have to point out, like, it will benefit them as well, because they're going to walk away from this with a massive amount of money, no doubt. But it's just weighing up whether, like, you think that's worth it, over having this kind of ongoing, which I think it probably would have. It's something that I don't think would have been sorted for years. And it'd be a very, very gradual process. I don't think like these big stories break. I don't think it would have been the way that they, Activision go, right now, we that's it. We're completely reforming the entire company. But I think there is the potential that could happen because they're now coming into another household. They're coming into another, a different business that might operate in a different, or hopefully does operate in a like fair way. So yeah, we'll keep you. If we'll come back to it, we'll discuss it more if things change. We're still going to continue in the sense that we're not going to be covering the Activision games on the channel. We just felt though that this was a kind of a too large a story to just kind of completely ignore, because it has impacts relating to the reason of why we don't cover these games in the first place. But let us know what you think about the acquisition. Is it something you're excited for in terms of like the games as well? Are you worried about some games going away to other platforms, or do you think this will benefit them overall? Let us know down in the comments below. Thanks, Sam, for joining me.
Pleasure as always.
Chatting away. And remember, like the video, leave a comment, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Bye.